Good morning, and thank you for joining us on this Thursday morning as we welcome Hensel Phelps to present a virtual job site tour as we still are celebrating Careers in Construction Month here in the month of October in the state of Colorado. I would like to welcome Carl and Tom, who are going to be presenting for us today, and I will go ahead and turn it over to them. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Cool. Well, thank you, Lisa. So my name's Tom. I work for Hensel Phelps. We're a general contractor. So that means that we are, managing the site and the contracts and the financials of projects. So today I'll kind of be going over the project that I'm currently working on, and we're all pretty excited about this project. It's been a fun one so far. It's specifically for the Colorado Rockies. So let me just get into that and I'll share my screen here. Okay. So I think you guys can see my screen there now. I probably can do this, actually, keep it up. And we'll get started here. Cool. They can't see this, right?
We got you, Tom.
Okay, cool. So guys, this is a project I'm working on. It's called McGregor Square. Like I said, the Colorado Rockies baseball team are the owner of this project. So this site used to be a parking lot that served them during game days. As you can see, here's Coors Field right next door. And what they've done is they've created this downtown plaza area with 3 separate buildings that all kind of work together to create a pre-game and post-game atmosphere, something for people in the city to go to. There's multiple restaurants here. There's Colorado Rockies Hall of Fame is going to be here. So it's all really kind of tied to Coors Field and the Rockies, and it's supposed to just be a downtown plaza that's inviting and open to, general public who are visiting the city. So I'll kind of go through that a little bit more here, but just so you can understand some of the key players. So Hensel Phelps, that's the company I work for. We're the general contractor. I know you guys are kind of taking this class and you're probably quite aware of what the general contractor does. I view our job as heavy coordination. So we're reaching out to all the other trades that are involved in building a building. And I'll go through all these trades throughout this slide, but we'll reach out to them. We'll organize their work. We'll put them under contracts to go do that work. We'll manage their financials and their schedule. We'll ensure their safety on the project. And that's really what our job is about, is the coordination, the safety, and the financials. So I also mentioned that the Colorado Rockies they're the owner. The other 2 kind of big players I would say are Stantec Architecture, which is the architect who came up with the design of the project, and then they create all the drawings and create what we're building. And Martin is also a large player in building the structure. So we'll look at that a little bit more here. So on the left is what I would call the hotel tower. So from levels 4 and above, you have hotel rooms. There are 176 hotel rooms. So some of those hotel rooms are going to look back down into the center plaza, and some will look straight at Coors Field, which will be really nice for game day. That middle tower is a high-end residence with condos in it. So there are 104 condos there. The condos range from anything from smaller studios on some of the lower levels to just immaculate penthouses that are, top of the line penthouses. And this really is a very high-end kind of experience when you live there. So we'll see a little bit more about it, but it's kind of cool to see all those high-end finishes go in and some of these nice condo units come together. And then this third building on the right there, that's an office tower. So when office towers get built, typically what happens is a general contractor like us, Hensel Phelps, will come in and we'll create a core and shell. So we create the structure, the skin, all the functioning pieces of the building. And we'll turn over, 200,000 square foot. That's 9 floors there. we'll turn over all that space for a future tenant to come in. So that tenant might be any office tenant that would come in, and then they'll be able to fill in what they need with their flooring and their specialty stuff there afterwards. So those are the 3 towers. The cool thing about this project that I already mentioned that we all love is these first 2 levels are all kind of interconnected, and there's, I think 4 restaurants mixed throughout. There's, another 3 or 4 bars down there. The center plaza has a lot of like kind of green, grassy seating areas. There's a lot of trees mixed in there and stuff. So what's going to happen is during game days, people are going to be able to come and be a part of this space and be right next to Coors Field, getting excited for a baseball game and getting ready to go over there. So we'll kind of walk through this as we go. The way I've structured this presentation is the order our schedule built the project in. So you guys can kind of think about that in terms of how we scheduled the project. That's how I'm going to show this presentation as well. So real quick, this first video here is from our architect, Stantec, and it's the vision behind this project. So it's about 3 minutes here, and you'll see kind of what the thought process was as the building was designed. So all these images, right, are rendered images, which means that the architect went in and created this building in a 3D sense. Those 3D models that create this building are then used to create the 2D drawings. But beyond that, they're also used for creating things like this, which kind of go into what the project is. As the Rockies, they don't know what they're buying until Stantec can kind of show them, and this is a way for Stantec to say, here's what the project's going to look like. Here's what it's going to look like when all these people are downtown and visiting the space. You can see how active they expect it to be with that many people, and kind of shows you like kind of the colors of the project and the material of the project and the space of the project. So here we've walked into like a food court area. This is going to be called El Mercado, or the Mercado area. And so it's just a big food court for people to come in and grab food at. Here in the center plaza, it's like I mentioned, people will be able to hang out, order food, order drinks, and prepare for a Rockies game. And then these 2 towers, the left is the residence and the right there is the hotel. So here in the center plaza, there's going to be this large Jumbotron screen to also encourage people to, enjoy the Rockies experience. Now here we're kind of moving up into the Rockies Hall of Fame area, and that's why you saw all that Rocky memorabilia there. So some of the nice amenities for the residents is like a high-end gym and a pool as well. And I'll show you some videos and pictures of that as we go through the project. Oh, there's the pool. All right, I think we're getting here towards the end. So you guys, I hope you kind of understand the shape of the building and where we are when I say hotel and residence and office, because that's how I'm going to kind of go through it. So now here we are. This was a parking lot when we first started. You can see that essentially here we are in downtown. It's a whole city block. What we have to do is go and excavate because the first lower 2 levels are parking garage levels. So we need to go excavate about 50 feet down or so. So this time lapse will kind of show you what that looks like as we pull a whole lot of earth out of the project. So here you can see on this right-hand side, that's as far down as we've gone. That's about 50 feet. We've excavated a lot of earth at this point. And what you can kind of see on the far right side is a shoring system. So in terms of construction here, what I would say is at this point in time, we had done demo work and a large amount of earthwork. And earthwork being, operators and backhoes and, excavators, and they're pulling out earth and they're putting it into all these tandem trucks. And those tandem trucks are hauling it away to a fill site. And that's just the general flow here. So at this point in time, we probably had 100 to 150 people on site daily, and most of those people were earth workers. Right about now, we would have been starting to do drilled piers as well, which drilled piers are like the most initial first part of a structure. They're what ties the structure into the ground, essentially, and the overall earth. We might be able to see a little bit of that as we go, but
Hey, Tom, would you be able to address where does the earth go?
Yeah, so pulling out dirt like that is expensive, and actually disposing of it's really expensive too. So typically you try and find projects elsewhere that need the dirt. So that's a lot of like kind of communication inside the industry. And so you might go take it to a project that's too low in elevation and needs to come up. That's always the best hope. If not, you have to take it out, out of town somewhere where you can dispose of it. In the city of Denver, there's a lot of earth that's kind of been used for the last 100 years and is maybe it had train tracks coming through it. We're right at Union Station, so it could be like a train waste disposal type thing. So some of that earth is not really good, and you have to pay to have it disposed. But it just really varies. On this project, we did all of that. Does that help answer that question a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Cool. So move on to the next slide there. So this is going to be the beginning of the structure. Now that we've opened up the earth and we've got about 50 feet down, what you can see is this bottom rectangle that supports all three buildings. That's the parking garage structure that we call the podium. And so that's 2 levels of parking. And then all the little piers below it, those are the drilled piers. So in the scale of this picture is that those drilled piers are 50 to 60 feet. So what you have to do is bring in a big drill rig and drill down. Rebar comes and ties caissons, and then you pour it with concrete. And so that's what, kind of keeps our building in place. At this point, we're looking at very heavy structure coordination. So we're working with Martin, the structural engineer, and we're working with the structural trades. So once earthwork's complete, drilled piers are complete. This project specifically was a concrete project. All 3 of these buildings are concrete buildings. So we have maybe 50 to 100 carpenters on site at any given time to go do a lot of this work. Carpenters are building the formwork that contains the concrete that gets placed. Laborers are also an important part of that, preparing the pours and getting everything ready for it. We have finishers who finish concrete and rebar installers. So that's what I would say is kind of the primary focus at this point of the project. This project was not a heavy steel project, but like all projects, it does have steel, right? You can see up on top of the 3 buildings, there's all those little sticks. Those are steel to go create kind of the upper penthouse areas. And then we had steel in canopy situations and stuff like that. So the trade that installs that would be an iron worker. And that's, a very big trade as well. Like for us here, we did a lot of concrete, but there are many buildings where iron workers would be kind of the primary driving factor of a building structure. around this time too, we had installed 3 cranes. So each tower had its own crane. And so we have a crane operator in place. That's a very skilled trade. Those guys are like our crane operators that we hire for HP, my company. A lot of those guys have 30 years of experience, and it's super critical that they are very experienced and knowledgeable about their craft, because they kind of have a high risk activity where someone could get easily injured. So, you know, we really take pride in our crane operators and their skill set. So here we're going to move through a little bit about what comes next would be like the skin system, right? So the skin system is what keeps the water out of the building once the structure is there. And so the trades that I would pay most attention to here is glaziers, right? So those are the people who install glass, masons, which are the people who install the brickwork, and sheet metal workers who install sheet metal, which can be used, you know, kind of as trim coverings, and it's used in a lot of like very functional applications, as well as we'll see some roofing here. So I think this is a time lapse. Oh no, so here you can kind of see this video. I was trying to show some of this brickwork that's up ahead in the top middle there. So we have a pretty nice intricate brick pattern, which I think looks really very good from the street. So that was masons who were laying brick, and that's just like you think it is. It's kind of an activity where we build a scaffold up, and then they work upward, and they just lay brick for, you know, a couple months at a time to go complete that. So here, what we're looking at is some of the glass, right? So there's a couple different types of glass. This glass is from floor to ceiling with very minimal mullions. So that's a very high-end product, and it creates this really nice open look. Here's some of the glass that was used to make up the office. So we're inside on the office level right now, and you can see about how big this glass is and how they install it. So here, this piece of glass got a crack on it. You can see that in the middle there. So this next glass here will be used to, that's going to be used to, oops, lost my place. That's going to be the replacement glass. And so they do that from the inside. And those are the glazers who do that. All right, we'll move on. So these next 2 people I have working in a boom lift here are the sheet metal workers. So they're installing sheet metal trim in this video. And so you can better understand sheet metal, I went up to the roof, and this is a penthouse, but it's a sheet metal skin system. So it really is corrugated metal that's been bent in a factory. And these guys come and install all these rivets, and that's the installation system. So here I'm going through some of the roofing applications that we have. Obviously I'm on the roof here. So what you have is, oops, let me go back to that. So what you have is that this product, this Dens deck, and this foam that I'm walking past on the left here is all the substrate that builds it all up, and then you come put this kind of plastic type of membrane over the top, and this plastic membrane is waterproofed. And so, you know, that runs to, geez, I keep messing that up. That runs to all these out spouts, which are installed by the plumbers. So here I am on another roof, and this roof gets a, why does it not want to pause? So the second roof gets a, like a tile. We call them pavers, but they're kind of like a tile for outdoor use. And so you can see that we use this foam to build up the roof and create slope. And then we use the like kind of PVC or plasticky type material to create a water barrier. And on top of that will go these stone tiles. So that would be a roofer and a, kind of like a tile install would be the two crews that do the majority of that work. And here's the final product of that. Okay. Here's two quick videos that I'll show. So this is looking at the office and we're watching some glass go in. I'd look at the bottom right and you can see there's only one level. Here comes the second level of glass. Here comes a third. So that's as the glass goes in, and you can see that some of the brick has started to come in behind the scaffold as well. So that's the masons there installing bricking. Okay, this next video is the hotel skin. This one starts a little slow, but let's see, once we can start to see some of the scaffold come down, you'll see what the material looks like out here. So the hotel is about half glass and half brick. And you can see that it takes a lot of work with the scaffold as well to go do this work. So as the GC, oftentimes we provide the scaffold and we also provide safety on it and stuff like this. It's definitely a large part of us to go manage that schedule at the very least and those costs. So at this point, you might think, you have basically the structure and the skin of a building. The other kind of main part of it that creates like the structure of it would be what I call vertical transportation. And so that would be like staircases and 8 elevators. On this project, we have 18 elevators and 13 staircases. So elevators are pretty specific, special install. So those guys are very skilled at their job and they've been installing elevators for many years at some point, and they know their product very inside and out. And then staircases are either concrete or steel, and kind of whatever their material is who determines who installs them. So here, it's just kind of walking through a staircase here. And I would say, guys, as you get into the industry and stuff, one of the cool things about being in the industry is kind of seeing some of these back of house spaces. I think most of us like being in them and seeing how the building works, aside from just a way that you might normally see it in a patron's type of eyes. So that's the stair. Here's another stair that's being installed. This one's steel where that first one was concrete. So let me go back just a hair. So here you can see it's hanging out right here, and the iron workers will lift it up and install it on this next pedestal. Okay, so up here, we're up on level 13 of these elevators, and what I would say about elevators is they're very complex devices. They're just have a lot of different parts to them. I mean, the people who install them, they do a lot of metal work, a lot of electrical work, a lot of just kind of install type of work, and they're very special. So they take a lot of knowledge to go put in correctly. Kind of showing off how specialized elevators get here. All right. I'll do that later. Okay, so here I'm in an elevator control room. And again, you can kind of see all the necessary equipment and extra stuff that kind of goes into making an elevator tick that just a common elevator rider wouldn't ever see. But being in the construction industry, we get to kind of peek behind the curtain and see some of that. Okay. Let's see what I've got here. I think I have one more slide in between, right? Okay, so I'll go back a slide here, but this next slide that I want to show you guys is some of the mechanical and electrical parts that make the building tick. So what I've shown here in this image is captured from the model. During design coordination, this is actually my specific job, is I help the trades get everything organized in a way where it's going to work once it's all installed. So there's a ton of different trades who are involved. A lot of this stuff that you're seeing here, the colors, is actually above the ceiling. So you would never see it if you're standing on the floor, but it's above the ceiling, and what makes the air conditioning go, all the plumbing work, all the electrical. And so you have to take the time ahead of construction to make sure that it all fits and is not going to run into each other once it's in the field. So what you can see here is some of the blue stuff is for HVAC, and that would be like your air conditioning and heat. This green stuff over on the right, that's plumbing. Some of the smaller yellow stuff throughout there is also plumbing. There's pipe fitters who are kind of work hand in hand with the HVAC people, electricians, data technicians, and then people like engineers are the ones who are creating the design for this. They're looking at it on a level of how much HVAC do I need to go make a room comfortable, and that would be kind of more of an engineering task. And then drafters, which is kind of the people I work the most with, to make sure that they're drawing out all of this in a way that works for the building. So let's kind of go look through how complicated some of this can get. Right now I'm up on a roof and I'm just showing off some of the large pieces of equipment. Most of these things that you're seeing right now are for the HVAC system. They're fan coil units and similar like that to heat and cool the air. This thing that's right in front of the screen there is about 2 RVs big, and this piece that's up on stilts here is as big as a house basically, and its design is to go heat and cool air. You can see all the electrical that comes in here. These are just essentially giant, I'm not super familiar with electrical units, but they're part of conditioning the electrical for the building, so that way it can convert to a room-sized amount of electrical as opposed to a building-sized amount of electrical. So you can see how much coordination it takes to get everything to fit and how tight this space is. That's really one of the things that we struggle with a lot, is how small spaces are and how much stuff has to go into it. So now we're into a mechanical penthouse, and a lot of these things are steam generators, and so they're heating and cooling water, or HVAC, like essentially they're liquid for running the heaters and coolers for the air. But really just very high level stuff, and you can see how tightly packed everything is and how much work goes into making sure that everyone fits in the same space. And then it's also worth saying that electricians and plumbers and HVAC guys, they have to work together, right? Because the HVAC guys might provide the equipment that makes a heater work, but they don't have the power to turn it on. And so the electricians always have to meet them and tie in and make sure that everything's like functioning in that way. So yeah, here I've kind of showing off a little bit of HVAC and its specific routing. So in this image, what you can see is that large duct that's going down the middle. It's about to have stub outs that transfer and bring just localized air to individual locations. So you see the HVAC is running down, and now you start to see tees off on both sides of that circular stuff. So that's going to provide the individual air to this room. You can also see plumbing runs on the right and hydronic runs on the left. And so, this is just more kind of plumbing and coordination. Here, this room is a tech room. So it's got a lot of power coming to it and a lot of data as well, with data being things like what brings your Wi-Fi or a phone line or, any kind of internet or anything like that. And here we're in an electrical room. So this electrical room serves only this one floor. And you can see how much electrical is being pulled off of these boxes and run to individual rooms. Okay, I'll move on. So while I think structure and all that is kind of the bones of a body, this type of stuff is really the the nervous system and all that. It's really what makes the building tick and function as we need it to. Let's see what this next one is. Oh,
Tom, before you proceed too far, can you look at the questions really quick? There are a couple in there.
sure. As far as glass being replaced over the course of the project, obviously it's really accidents. And what happens is, they might be installing it and it might be a tight fit. And as they install it, they bang on it too hard and it breaks, or another trade might do damage to it. That certainly happens in the industry. Things get installed and then broken because people are driving around lifts and all types of stuff. So it does happen. It's one of our jobs as the general contractor to keep people organized in such a way that they're not stepping on each other's toes and breaking each other's glass and stuff like that. Like I'm saying here, that could have been an iron worker who broke that glass. And if they did, it's probably because they were working two on top of each other. So we try and phase our schedule so that way people have space to, work without being right in each other's way. When it happens, we just have to, accept it, get a new piece of glass, and move on. I'm guessing here, this color coding, you're probably talking about this piece here. And yes, it is there are, multiple job titles working on this and really multiple companies working on this, so here we might have 4 or 5 different companies who are all coming together and trying to share the same space. And unless we sit down and make everyone talk to each other, they're not going to do that perfectly. So we really have to take the time and coordinate and, just spend that time to get it right. Carl, you were asking about that bar across the electrical box. Electrical work is I wouldn't say it's a dangerous job, but there are parts about it that can be very high risk, right? I mean, you're working with high voltage electrical or just like highly energized equipment. And so there's a lot of standard practices and things like that are in place to make sure that no one hurts themselves or someone else around them. So those bars that are across the electrical box, they have a padlock attached to them and they're locked to make sure that someone can't just wander in there and open the box and hurt themselves by accessing that electrical.
Right. The concept is they're working somewhere invisibly down the floor there, and they can't have somebody flipping the switch, right, and turning things on while they're working on it, right? And what is it called? It's called lockout, tagout, right?
Lockout, tagout, yeah.
So I when I first learned about that years ago, I thought it was just really, really a cool way to keep the people safe.
Yeah, the lockout, tagout system is when I put my own specific lock on something, no one else can ever unlock it. So I know I'm safe because I'm working there and no one can unlock it and turn it on or something like that. And so it keeps me safe. And really across the industry, there's a lot of practices in place to keep people safe. On our jobs, whenever we're in scissor lifts, we tie off. And those tie-off practices are keeping us safe by making sure that we're not climbing out of scissor lifts or anything like that. So it's really, each trade has their own unique kind of safety hazards, and they've also addressed them in very unique ways. Cool. Let me know if there's any more questions. I'm happy to answer them as I go. And it might be easier to answer them as I go, so definitely don't hesitate to stop me there. Okay, so now we've got a structure in place. We've got mechanical and electrical in place, and our building is really running and functioning like a building should. Now it's time to kind of dress it up and finish it for the public to be able to use it. So we're into kind of a finishes phase of the building. And that's actually where the building's at right now in real life. So if you were to walk there right now, you'd see a lot of this work being installed. So trades that we'll really focus on in this next section are drywall, whether that's the framer or the finisher. Painters come afterwards and they'll paint all that stuff. You'll start to see, you know, the same people who were there, electricians and plumbers and stuff, but they'll bring in their people who are better at the fine tasks, you know, with installing lights for finishes or installing, you know, a sink or a shower or something like that. We'll also see trades like upholstery, which is putting like material, like fabric material onto chairs and stuff like that, and casework, which would be building shelving and kind of cabinets and stuff like that. We'll also see a lot of carpet and tile installers and appliance installers, and in the same vein, specialty finishes. So like as good specialty finishes, we've got a bar coming and they have to go put a bunch of, you know, they literally are going to go put a bar in there, and then they're going to put all the stuff that comes with that in there.
So Tom, are these specialty contractors that you work with, or does Hensel Phelps do any of that work themselves?
That's a good question. We self-perform concrete work. So as a general contractor, we do the concrete work. You might see construction managers. Typically, they would do the planning and project management like we do, but not self-perform any work. So that would just be a difference in the industry. Both those kind of companies exist.
Okay.
But our carpenters are more focused on concrete work than they are like casework, for instance. So we bring in specialty contractors to go do that. And that's just one of the many contracts that'll be on this job.
Got it. Thank you.
So here's a picture of what the finished hotel room is going to look like. We're about to walk through one of those. You'll see, you know, so we construct everything, but we won't bring the bed in and stuff like that, or any of the chairs or anything like that. That's for the owner to go do after we're done. So you'll kind of see the room where I show you this exact room. It's completely 100% finished. And so anything after that will be up to the owner to go do. So you'll kind of see that here. Okay. So right now I'm on level 13, which isn't, this room isn't 100% finished, but this next room will be. But this one right now is more in the drywall phase, right? So you can see drywall has gone up, which means it's been framed and the drywall has been placed. And those drywallers are finishing it to like the level of finish necessary. And now this room's been painted here. You can also see at that point in time, there's tile going up. So this would be a bathroom in the future. So there's tile on the wall for the shower and all that. Okay. Let me skip ahead a little bit. Here's another not quite finished space. So you can see the ACT ceiling here. So that's a unique specialty trade, is they're going to come and put all these T-joints there and drop ceiling tiles in. So it's just another material that has its own specialty installer. You can also see some casework here. The casework being those cabinets in the back. So those are built specifically for this unit and specifically for this application. This room I'm in right now is a kind of break room for the hotel employees. Okay, so here we're starting to get into finished spaces. This is the office. It's a finished space. And I'm going to show off some of the views a little bit now as well. So if you're on level 8 of the office as a tenant, this is what you might see. But like I said, this is actually a finished level. And so what happens is when a company comes and says, we want this office and we want this floor, they'll come and they'll put their own drywall and carpet or tile, and they'll make it look the way they want it to look and match their kind of company's goals. But what we've installed is all the systems that make this building run. So you can see fire protection up against the ceiling there. And so that is part of our code requirement, is that this building is protected from fire. So those are the black lines that are running each way across the ceiling. There's also, HVAC and plumbing at this point. There's some finished bathrooms. So we've finished what we call the core and shell of the building here. And, I think there's some pretty awesome views from this building itself, being right in downtown. And if you look in some of the directions, you can see, even the mountains. Okay, so now we're getting to that finished hotel room. So I showed you that picture earlier, so kind of recognize that this is actually the same thing. It's obviously missing the bed, which I said the owner would bring, but the carpet's been installed. The walls are painted to the appropriate color. On that back wall there, you can see some trim. That was just one of the architectural finishes that this project has, so that's been installed. This fancy light up on the ceiling there has been installed. So, this room is actually truly finished here. The electricians have come and put in all their trim plates. Here's the HVAC guys have come and put on their final trim plates. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but this wall is actually wallpapered and painted, and the trim separates that. So all those are multiple different trades. The painter is not the same guy who puts the wallpaper on. So those are just a couple different trades there. As well as there's tile workers, and there are a trade that specifically hangs door frames. There's trades that the plumbers would bring in their fine-tuned guys to go finish these showers and the sink and the toilet there. So all these trades are kind of involved and all coming together in the same place. Okay, so I've jumped over to the residence now. So this is going to be one of the finished rooms in the residence. This is a studio apartment, so it's only one room, and you guys can kind of get a feel for its size. Oh. Okay, yep, so I'm in the studio. These lights are super fancy, super nice. This stone is gorgeous in person. It's really pretty stone. Even the wood grain on these doors, all this material is just really super nice. So as you get into the residential unit here, you can see that the electricians have done their work. These appliances have been brought in. So I'm talking a stove, a refrigerator, a microwave. The plumber's installed his final pieces there. Some specialty pieces like that mirror, which has electrical going to it. So there's just a lot of people who are kind of working together and right next to each other. Yeah. Again, all these materials are just really nice, and we work with all types of stuff. Some jobs require cheaper materials and some require more high end, and all jobs have their benefits and plus, but it is definitely cool working with some of this high end material. Okay, cool. So that's what the studio looks like there. So here's another office. Look at the bathrooms. It's a little dark in the video, I apologize, but you know, you have just a bunch of people coming together. The plumber again, tile, the mirror install. This is all casework. Again, I know it's not cabinets, but it's what we call casework because it's kind of a specialty wood product that separates the toilets. So just a lot of kind of specialty things that we're coordinating and getting in, you know, all the way up to those water fountains and stuff. There are people who are making sure that we're getting the right water fountains, that we're ordering them, paying for them, having them delivered on time, and then installed on time. And the plumbers then have to go attach it.
So Tom, I think you're mostly speaking to it, but Carl's made a note in the chat. Can you speak to the process on how detailed it is to close a space out, and what procedures do you do?
Perfect, yeah. This last video is a great question. So this space, right, is actually finished here. So what we'll do is we'll come in, and owners don't want to see this tile background behind me. They don't want to see that there's a gap between two tiles. You know, it might only be a 1/4 inch, but if there was a gap right there, that wouldn't fly. Or maybe there's a chipped tile or something like that. So we'll come through and we'll mark, and we usually mark in the field by putting like a sticky note next to it, and we'll mark it on our map on our tablets and say tile is chipped. And so that's not going to work. And so as the GC, I work for Hensel Phelps, right? As the GC, we do that before the owner comes because we want to represent to the owner that we're doing our best job and we're making sure that the quality is as expected. So we go before the owner does, and things that are obvious, right? This tile is chipped. We make the tile people replace that tile. And so they'll have to come and they'll demo the tile out and then they'll install a new tile. And it's not an easy process. It's not a hard process either. It's just kind of part of the process. So we'll put new tile in, and then that tile will be good. That sticky note is removed. We remove it off our tablet, and it's one punch list item that's been removed. Now we might have, depending on a space, you know, we like it when there's only 3 or 4 punch list items, but sometimes there might be hundreds of punch list items. So that's just what we have to go do to make sure that all the quality is there. And then once we've done that and we feel that the space is good, we present it to the owners. They do the same process, and hopefully, you know, that they'll only find one item and 2 items, whatever it is, and we'll go address those items and make them happy. There's also a lot of that has to go on. It's easy for owners to see things like tile and carpet and paint. There's also a lot of the building systems that are not as easy for the owner to understand, that they really rely on us and our trade partners who are the experts to go provide them the right product. So that's part of the commissioning process of a building. So we kind of showed you guys all the mechanical systems and stuff. It makes sense that that's not going to work right off the bat. It takes a lot of tinkering to get everything to work the way it should. And so as the experts, we expect our trade partners to go and do that tinkering and get everything to tie together in a big building maintenance system. And so everything should work together and really flow the way it should. And that can be a long process, but again, it's just part of the process, and we're all used to it and expect it. So there's even some extra specialty installers. So like on this project, we have a pool and a hot tub. So that's a specialty installer who, you know, is knowledgeable about putting a pool on the 13th story of a building. So there's a lot of, you know, structural challenges, design challenges, and all that. And even once it's been 100% designed, there's still just challenges about making it actually work, like realistically in the field. So we have a lot of specialty installers. I have a couple that I kind of showcased in this video. Here's one that's kind of back of house, but it's a trash and laundry chute. So those have their own unique codes that are associated with them, and they have, you know, their own things that are going on with them. This right here, some of this could be for like cleaning that. There's like a water system and a fire system that's tied to these chutes, and so if the trash down below in the basement was to catch on fire, these chutes have fire sprinklers that are installed inside of them. And they also have plumbing, so that way they can do their own cleaning. So, you know, just a specialty installer that puts that in. Here's what that looks like on the bottom there. It kind of discharges right there with the trash. So here I'm kind of just showing some of the back of house spaces. In a second, I think the video cuts to the pool, and yep. So here I'm looking out, the pool is in the background right there. So it's a little hard to see, but where the blue tarps are in the middle, in the dead middle of the screen, there's blue tarps. That's the pool right there. So it's going to be, you know, a really cool pool. It's on the 13th story. It looks out at the city like that. It looks out at Coors Field. So it's just going to be a fun place to be once it's complete. But it's got its own unique challenges in installing it. And then all this red stuff that you see in the foreground of this photo, that is a snow melt system. So it runs heated glycol, which is just a liquid, but it runs this heated liquid through those tubes, and that heated liquid will then heat the tile above it, and the tile above it will then melt snow when there's snow on the deck, or even if it's, you know, if it's just kind of cold, they can turn it on and it'll help heat the space up. So that's just a specialty install that our mechanical system has to go deal with and install. Here's another specialty install. These are davit arms. So these are used to hang a platform, so that way window washers can come at a later date and wash the windows. Here's the platform way down on the ground there, but almost every building has this, and you wouldn't even know that a building has it unless you've kind of installed one or seen them at work. Okay, guys, so here we're really working our way out of the building. This is almost the end here. So we've built the building, and now we just need to go make sure the sidewalk looks good and all that other stuff that got tore up during construction. So we're doing a lot of earthwork with leveling and grading. We're installing landscaping, whether it's trees or bushes or grass or anything like that. You have to make sure that your sidewalks all like have flow of water when it rains. So we have plumbers back there again to make sure that they're tying the rainwater to the city's sewage system. And then paver install, so these bricks that make the sidewalk up, that's a specialty install as well. And then you have other kind of specialty things like benches or trash cans or any of those kind of things that we have to get installed as well. So yeah, here I'm kind of just walking down the street, and you can kind of see the pavers. Actually, that building that I'm walking towards right there is Coors Field. So many of you guys, if you come to a Rockies game next season, you'll walk right down this avenue right here. You'll see the building we just built, and you guys just got to virtually tour. And you'll walk past all these planters with these trees in them. You guys might even stop in at the restaurants and stuff like that. So I think that for us who have been building this project, and there's been so many people involved, you know, but I think we're all excited because, you know, we're all here in Denver and we get to go to Rockies games from time to time. And next time we do, there will be a building that we built that we can go have lunch or dinner at. And I just think a lot of us are excited about that. You can see how much landscaping we're about to go put in. That stuff is all under our scope as well. So we'll make sure that it gets installed correctly and that those trees are thriving and living just fine. Here's a video of the center plaza as it kind of gets installed. So you can see how many people and stuff gets moved around. If I can stop. What's going on right now is we're building up the base. It's a couple feet too low, so we have to bring foam to go fill it up to the right level. We're installing dirt for this area right here on the right is the grass that's like a patio area for people to watch on the big screen TV at. So there's a lot of stuff happening at this point, especially involving plumbing and kind of being ready for rainwater. So here is just a kind of cool view of what that center plaza looks like. I mean, it's going to be just pretty exciting to sit there, sit on the lawn, enjoy the space, look up at the towers around you. There's going to be a big Jumbotron screen right there. And so you'd be able to watch a baseball game from there starting next year. And really that brings us to kind of like the end of it, I mean, this is again a render of it. So this is what the architects think this space is going to be used for, and I think will be used for that. People will hang out here and watch the Rockies play and enjoy the space. And just kind of close out what this was about was all the coordination that goes into it, all the people who were a part of this construction of it. We had over 70 unique companies who were contracted to work on this project. So it's more than, the guy who pours concrete and the guy who installs the plumbing. There's just a lot of people who are involved in it. And that's just the install side. There's also the architecture side and the engineering side. So you have hundreds of people who are involved. On average, we probably had about 600 people per day on site. I think we got up to 700, 800 people on site on our most busy days. But pretty much right from the start, we had a lot of people on site. And that's 2.5 years that we've had 600 people per day on site. There's no longer concrete people on site, but instead there are plumbers on site and all that. So it just is an ebb and flow as the project goes on. But yeah, that's where we're at. And, I think that construction is a very rewarding career, and there's so many different aspects of it. And, I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. That project is just amazing. As I mentioned earlier, I've been keeping my eyes on it. So it was amazing to be able to see inside of it and hear all about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right.
Of course, yeah.
So you said 2.5 years. Is that how long you've been on the project? What's the total duration of a project like this?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have been on the project for about almost exactly 2 years. And I showed up right maybe 3 or 4 weeks before we broke ground to go start that excavation process. So I've really been there for the entirety of the project. We have another 3 or 4 months to go. And then just even before construction started, there was probably, a good year of pre-construction and estimating and all types of things that are related to cost and schedule. But the actual construction itself is a 2.5 year process.
2.5 years. Okay. And I
will say that we flew through this project. It's a very aggressive schedule, and that's really the way construction is these days. It's not uncommon, but we built this project extremely fast.
Well, yeah, I think as we drive by it, you always hear people say like, man, that's really going up quickly, or they're moving really fast on that one. So it's been fun to watch it from the outside. I made a note here when you were talking about the punch list that you were talking about using a tablet to track the punch list. And it
Mhm.
made me think that's got to be a pretty new thing just in the last few years. What technology changes have you seen working on job sites in the past few years that have made your job easier?
Yeah, we are actually Hensel Phelps. We're one of the leaders in the industry in pushing new technologies. So a good deal of people have tablets and they go look at the drawings on the tablets. We also work through the 3D model quite a bit. So, let me pull out of this and pull this up. You guys can still see my screen.
We can.
So I showed that shot with the multiple colors that showed all the different components of the building.
Mm-hmm.
But buildings these days really get built virtually first in a 3D world. They get here, let me pull this up actually. So this is the entire project, and you can see how many hundreds of files are used to go build the project. And so all these files are the content that gets installed at a later date. And so we do our coordinating in here as well. And, just looking at the hotel here, I'll go into the hotel level 1 and we can just kind of walk around. But this is technology.
Is this the Navisworks software?
This is Navisworks, yep. And in general, the thought is this is BIM, Building Information Modeling, and VDC, Virtual Design and Construction.
Mm-hmm.
So this BIM and VDC process is what we use to come walk into a hotel front desk space and say, well, what's above the ceiling? Okay, here's a big grease duct, and here's a lot of plumbing and mechanical pipes and air distribution, and are all these things going to fit together in the same system, in the same ceiling? Are they going to fit, or is that overlap right there actually going to be a problem?
Okay.
And so we do a lot of that work ahead of time, and that's definitely helped the industry be faster with construction because the flow of work is better in the field, and it leads to less reconstruction, which saves people money in the long run.
So is it your job to create this, or is there someone whose job it is to create these files for you?
It's a good question. There's pretty much all players who are involved have to do some work creating stuff. So from the very beginning, the architects and the engineers, they create their own models. But then the trade partners who come on, then they go refine those models, and that's the drafters and all that. So those drafters will refine it and actually really fine tune it specifically to what fittings they're going to go buy and stuff like that. They literally use this as a purchasing piece. So they'll say, okay, hey, I've got to go install 2-inch pipe. Well, how much pipe do we have to go buy? Well, they'll use this software to track how much they expect to buy, and that's what they'll go buy. And fittings like this, this is like a 60-degree offset or something like that. So they'll go and say, we need to go buy 30 of those on this floor. And then they'll buy them, package them together, ship them out just for that floor. And then they'll do the same thing for the next floor, and the same thing for the next floor. And if you didn't do this all ahead of time in the coordination side, you'd miss out on all those advantages, and you wouldn't be able to be as fast and accurate.
So this 2.5-year build project could take significantly longer if you don't have this technology helping you really know what you're doing when you go into it.
Exactly.
Well, that's really interesting. Oh, the things I didn't know when I was in high school.
So
thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
This was a really great tour. It was a lot of fun to watch it. You did a really nice job.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to be doing a Career Pathways Fair in November, so we'd love it if Hensel Phelps could join us for that. So I'll be in touch a little bit, but just thank you for your time today and for your commitment to working with our students.
Of course, yeah. Happy to help, guys.
Thanks, Tom. Talk with you
Good luck. Yep.